My name's Woto, and I originally was not a pre-health or pre-med major. As a student, I was actually originally in econ, and so I actually worked in finance for about 6 months before I decided to switch into medicine. And so it was a big change, but I'm really happy with the decision that I've made and the direction that I'm going.
Wow, that's really interesting. Can you tell us what made you decide to switch?
I actually originally went into finance, kind of just following the path that my parents had set for me. They're kind of expecting like the traditional Asian parent, like you're gonna go into a job, make good money, make us proud. So I was like, okay, that's fine with me. But after I got a job in finance, I was in financial consulting for private equity firms, investment firms, and I was feeling really unfulfilled in my job. I felt like kind of all I was doing was just helping big money make more money, and which is fine, and there are plenty of people out there who love that and are thriving in that. But for me specifically, I really wanted to be able to see the people that I was helping. I started looking at some volunteering, so I volunteered at a children's hospital, and then I shadowed a PA, just kind of curious to see what it's like to go into medicine. And then I just fell in love with it. And so actually, like the first day of my shadowing, I came back and I was absolutely thrilled. It was probably the most excited I've been coming home on the subway in my entire life. So that was kind of when I knew, like, I really love medicine and I really love, seeing people and helping them. So that's kind of how I just made that jump.
What specifically about that day made you really happy?
The PA was very patient with me, let me ask all the questions that I wanted, but also he took me from room to room. We saw families, we saw children, we saw all types of patients. We had people come in for like their flu shot. We had a couple of people come in for even like a broken bone. And so I kind of also got to see the patient PA relationship. I felt like that's the kind of job that I want to have, where I consistently feel like I'm doing something for people and bringing that healing to them.
Can you talk about your journey to getting into PA school?
After I shadowed that PA in Harlem for about 3 weeks, I decided that I was going to try and do something a little more involved. And so I actually applied for scribing jobs. The scribe's job puts you essentially at the doctor's side at all times. And the role of the scribe is to chart everything for the doctor. So essentially, as the doctor sees the patient, they examine them, they decide on a diagnosis, and then they come up with a treatment and a prescription for medication if needed. The scribe literally writes everything that the doctor does, everything the doctor decides, everything the doctor wants to send out in the patient's chart. And the scribe is meant to make the doctor's role a little bit easier, and so that the doctor can also be a little more personal with the patient rather than being on the computer the whole time. It's a really great way to see if you're going to love medicine or not. That's why I did scribing first, because I didn't have any medical expertise at all. I worked for a 6-month stretch, and after that point, I had accumulated about 1,000 patient care hours, which is for PA school something that is necessary on your application. I decided to quit my job to go back to school because I needed to get science classes. Because for economics, you don't need any of the like biology, chemistry, anything. So I had nothing. And so I decided to go back to school, take those so that I could begin, get the ball rolling to apply to PA school.
Can you just share like a quick overview of your experience applying to PA school?
Like I mentioned earlier, I was actually taking classes all the way through the summer because I didn't have everything on my transcript to submit yet. So I didn't actually send in my application until August, which is fairly late in the cycle. So I was really nervous about that. It was like so late in the cycle that I wouldn't stand a chance against, other people who've already been applying. I spent way too much time comparing to other people's stats on Reddit and the physician assistant forum. I applied to 16 schools, which is really up there on the high end of a lot of schools to apply to. Actually, it's suggested that students apply on average to like 8 or 9, but I was really, really desperate to get in this year rather than wait another year, because as someone who, was in a previous career before this, I already felt like I was behind other people. Waiting from after I submit my application up until I got my first interview, I was just stressed out. All I thought about was getting an interview. And then I got my interview. My first interview was on October 3rd. And I remember being super nervous for it. It was one of those 8-hour ones. It started at 8 in the morning and it ended at 4 in the afternoon. And it was a full day of interviewing. But I think probably by like 2 or 3 o'clock, I started to kind of get a little bit more comfortable and less stressed out, which for interviews is really important because you need to be able to be yourself. So I actually had 2 interviews almost back to back. I had one on the 3rd and then I had one on the 5th. And the one on the 5th was for PACE, which is my top tier, my top choice school. And so was really nervous about that one also. But thanks to having had one the day before, I felt a little bit more comfortable. I felt good about the interview, went back to work the next day, and then I actually got the phone call that I was accepted. It was fantastic. I celebrated. And then after that, I really just felt at ease. I think once you have an acceptance in your pocket, you can really take the next interviews that you have easy. Not as in like you just go just because, but because you feel a little bit more less pressure and you can be yourself a little bit more.
So now transitioning to Instagram, can you share about how you got started there?
I actually started my Instagram around the same time that I started applying to PA school. And the reason why was because when I was applying to PA school, like I mentioned, I was really stressed out and I was looking for, just kind of anyone who was going through the same thing that I was. And I happened across an Instagram page of a PA student. And the post was just about, it was like, I remember being this time last year stressing about my application, waiting for interviews to come in. And it was like, essentially, it was everything that I was resonating with. I was stressed about my application. I was worried that I wouldn't get in. I was preparing for the next cycle, but I was hoping to the high heavens that I would get in this cycle. And I kind of, from there, I just kind of explored the other PA pages on Instagram. And actually, I was surprised that there's a very big medical community on Instagram. And so after exploring that for a while, I was like, wow, this is, actually a really, really non-toxic, healthy, encouraging community that I really like. And from there, I also kind of had the idea of what if I, documented my journey to PA school so that when I become a PA student or, farther down the line, when I become certified as a PA and I start working, I can see like, wow, this is where I came from. I can see, the rawness in like my beginning posts where I was so stressed out. And then I can also be an encouragement to people who are in my position farther down the line. Just like how that PA student was encouraging to me and motivating to me, I was like, wouldn't it be nice to be that for someone else who needs it in a couple of years? So that's why I started it. Another reason why I started it, which I actually didn't realize until later, was it's a place for me to kind of let out my interests in medicine that I haven't gotten to before. I actually really love doing medical research. It's like something that I randomly do, like when I'm eating lunch or something, I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why, like on an eye chart, there are no A's. It's always a specific set of letters, but there are no A's. I wonder why. And so I'll look it up and I'll be like, oh, that's really interesting.
How can people follow you?
My Instagram handle is at whitecoat_woto. So white coat, like the doctor's white coat _woto, which is my name, WOTO.
Well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you so much, Woto, for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.